The silent current. The Nile was flowing differently that morning. It wasn't water that moved beneath the surface, it was something shifting, something deep, coiled like a beast, stirring restlessly beneath the flow. In the northern edge of Sudan, before the morning mist had lifted, a French archaeological team began setting up camp. But this wasn't an ordinary excavation. Press, no public record. Not even the Egyptian government had acknowledged the mission. This was a silent clearance operation. It's privately funded, no questions allowed. And at the center of it all, an anomaly. A few days prior, thermal satellite data had shown something strange. A narrow bend in the Nile where the water flow changed direction. Looping unnaturally like a coiled serpent, geologists had called it a geothermal quirk. But Dr. Elise Marshing remembered a forgotten inscription kept at the Paris Institute of Egyptian Studies. The Nile falls silent in one place. There it no longer flows. It sleeps. As they reached the site, something felt wrong. The silence was overwhelming. No birds, no insects, no sounds from the river. Even the wind somehow held its breath. Locals had long abandoned the area. No boats came near the shore. No footsteps touched the earth. Then, the team unearthed it. Just a few meters below the surface lay a circular stone gate. No hieroglyphs, no names, only 2 words, carved in ancient precision. Do not look. Listen. Flanking the gate stood 2 female statues' eyes, gouged out, faces weathered by time. When Dr. Marshing touched the stone, a shiver ran through her spine. No one else seemed to feel it. To the team, this was just another burial chamber, another forgotten tomb. They lowered a probe camera into the passage. At 3 meters deep, the signal cut out. The last image showed a corridor ceiling, covered not in symbols but mouths, rows and rows of mouths, open wide, carved into the stone. No eyes, only mouths, and the final recorded audio. Someone is whispering, but not breathing. That night, the campfire cracked quietly in the stillness. Malik, a young archaeologist, stepped away from his tent and walked toward the dig site. No one followed. The river shimmered with eerie calm. But then, the glassy reflection, something blinked, a face without eyes, just beneath the surface. For one heartbeat, it was there. Malik stumbled backward, fell hard onto the ground. At that exact moment, the motion sensors inside the camp registered a 1.2-second low-frequency sound pulse. Too deep to be heard, but strong enough to stir the brain. Later, it would be called a neural vibration. By morning, Malik was gone. His boots, his notebook, everything was untouched. Tracks led to the water's edge, but not a single one returned. No blood, no body, only a hairline crack running down the stone gate. Out. And from within that crack, thin black strands had emerged like roots, but darker. Pulsing, Dr. Marshong recorded her final entry for the day. We are approaching something that Docent want to be seen. This is no excavation. This is an awakening. Anuket's breath the next day, the Nile had gone silent. The water was still there, but it no longer flowed. It sat motionless like a bottomless mirror, and beneath that mirror something was breathing. For the first time, tension in the team was no longer subtle. They tried to rationalize Malik's disappearance. Maybe he slipped into the river, maybe he was sleepwalking. But no one said what they were all thinking. What if something we can't see took him? Dr. Marchand reanalyzed the low-frequency audio from the night before. The sound wasn't random. Structure. It wasn't music. It was language. And in the rhythm of that language, one sequence kept repeating. 3639, 3639 for numbers. But they felt like 4 breaths. A loop. A cycle. Something was awakening, breathing from within. Small fractures began forming beneath the stone perimeter of the dig site. A strange odor leaked through the cracks. Burned incense and blood. One of the team, a young geologist named Andrea, was found the next morning in a strange position, face down in the mud, hands clamped over his ears. No wounds, no struggle, just one sentence scribbled in his journal. The sound sees me. That night, Dr. Marchand awoke in her tent not to a noise from outside, but to a whisper from within.
Ow.
There were no words, but the message was clear. It wasn't a thought. It was a command. A voice at the base of her skull whispered, "Open the door." By dawn, the stone gate no longer cracked it. Pulsed. The rock was moving, expanding and contracting like a living lung. The eyeless statues, their mouths began to emit faint vapor, as if they were breathing. At exactly 3:15 p.m. that day, the Nile dropped 12 centimeters in depth instantly. No dam, no blockage, no geological explanation, just emptiness. Egyptian hydrology records had never shown such a drop. But there was one reference, a fragmented papyrus seen years ago by Dr. Marchang, which read, "When Anuket opens her eyes, the river retreats, and the soul stands alone." That night, the door opened. Not by force, not by collapse. Stones moved back on their own, as if something from within called them awake. Inside was a circular chamber, the walls lined with statues without mouths, and at the center a female figure. No eyes, but the mouth. Open. It was not a statue. It was a mold, as if a body had once been absorbed into the stone. At exactly 3:03 a.m., the camp's sensors triggered alarms again, but this time, the sound wasn't recordable. It couldn't be measured, as it didn't come through. It came through feeling. Monitors glitched. Screens turned red. Some team members began to cry without knowing why. Dr. Marchang whispered, "Anuket is no longer just a name. It's a name beneath the water." When the door opened, there was no light, only a feeling. Not something seen, not something heard, but something that pressed against the inside of every cell, as if each person who entered was being recognized, not accepted. Judged, Dr. Marchand and a 4-person team stepped into the corridor. The walls felt like stone, but colder than any mineral they'd ever touched. Softer, like something that was once alive, one voice whispered. "These walls are breathing." Every few steps, the same figure appeared, a woman with eyes gouged out, and now her mouth was sewn shut. They weren't just statues, or silenced witnesses, or perhaps beings forbidden to speak. They reached the central chamber. The floor was like black glass, but not for reflection. It existed only to hide what lay beneath. Dr. Marchand knelt slowly. Beneath the glass, a shape, female body, but not entirely human. Across her chest were ancient markings, 3 spirals intertwined. At the center, an open eye. But the eye was empty, not seeing, just watching. The eye of Anuket, but blinded. As Marchand bowed her head, her heartbeat shifted, as if a second heart had replaced her own. Other team members clutched their chests, their pulses synced. Something inside the chamber was aligning them. Their rhythm now belonged to it. Then, on the ceiling, letters began to glow. They hadn't been there before. Soft silver symbols emerged and shimmered. The name that pierces water breaks stone with its voice. As Marchand stared at the writing, a whisper passed through her mind. "You know my name?" But she didn't. Not truly. Anuket was a goddess, yes, but this was something else, something older, something beneath Anuket. The stone figure's empty eye sockets begun to redden. Small cracks spread across its surface. Tempered. It wasn't water. It was dense, near oily. It swallowed the light. The floor absorbed a tan for a moment. The air disappeared. Back at camp, every generator shut down at once. Digital clocks reset to 0. GPS devices lost all location data, and the Nile began to flow backward. The team tried to flee the chamber, but the corridor was no longer the same. The wall statues had opened their mouths. And from within, emptiness spoke. No words, only meaning. The time of nameless gods has come. Marchand reached into her bag, pulling out a torn piece of ancient papyrus, the one she had only half-translated years ago. And when the river retreats, it is not the eyes that awaken but the names. As the chapter ended, only one question remained. What is this being's true name? And if that name is spoken, Will the world remember it tore? Will it forget itself? Behind the eyes, 3:33 a.m., the camp went completely dark. But this darkness wasn't normal. It wasn't the absence of light. It was a presence, a weight. Something that swallowed not only brightness, but meaning. Dr. Marshing and the remaining team stood at the end of the corridor. Behind them, the world felt ... distant, disconnected. They were no longer inside a tomb. They were inside a silence made of whispers. And in the center stood the figure, the ancient being with no eyes and an open mouth. But now it was changing. The stone began to dissolve inward, layer by layer, revealing something. Translucent. Not skin, not flesh, not death. Something in between. Martian tried to look away, but couldn't. Because it wasn't a voice holding her in place, it was a gaze. Something long buried resurfaced. Goddesses do not descend from the sky. Humans call them up from below. Anuket may have never truly existed. This being ... was not a goddess. Anuket was just the name we gave it. But its real name was never meant to be spoken. Because names are invitations, and this one should never be called. Suddenly, the floor cracked. The obsidian glass shattered, and from beneath rose not water but black smoke. The smoke curled upwards, carrying human forms. No eyes, only mouths. And they all whispered the same thing. The eyes forgot us, but we never stopped watching. Martian fell to the ground, her body no longer hers. Her mouth opened against her will, and then a sound escaped. A word. But not her word. Her body had become an instrument. The word echoed through the chamber. Na-Khura, the statues began to weep. Cracks split the walls, and the river vanished. No one from the expedition was ever found. Only one video remained. A corrupted, flickering recording that soon deleted itself. Today, the region still appears intact on satellite maps. But every signal that enters gets lost. And somewhere in the old riverbed, dry and silent, a single inscription remains. You know my name. You can't close your eyes. Final scene, a child's drawing. A woman, with no eyes, just a mouth. She's staring at the viewer. Below the image, one word is written. Anuket. Some names are never forgotten. Some eyes never stop watching. If you stayed until the end of this story, then maybe you're already part of it. Subscribe, leave a like, because the next darkness might be deeper than this one.